This is CBC Here and Now.
Walmart announced yesterday that it'll be closing this store on Topsail Road.
It's going to create an inconvenience for people around there that they're going to have to go to Kelsey Drive and going to have to use the buses.
We're going to hear from some shoppers to see what they think. That story coming up on Here and Now.
For a lot of people, it's been a year of no life.
He's had enough. The life of a rotational worker has been tough during this pandemic.
Tonight we hear from one worker who sold his house and is moving out west.
Cool temperatures continue for the next couple of days, but as we head towards the weekend, we're going to start to see some warmer temperatures.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. I'm Peter Cowan.
And I'm Carolyn Stokes. The decision by Walmart to close a store in the west end of St. John's will have a big impact on some residents in that area. As we reported last night, Walmart Canada is shutting down 6 of its stores, including one on Topsail Road. Here and Now's Jeremy Eaton reports on what that means for some shoppers.
A parade of public transit pulls away from the Village Mall, a major transfer hub for Metrobus. Word of Walmart's closure is still news to some.
I just found out about it. I think it's going to create an inconvenience for people around there that they're going to have to go to Kelsey Drive or Mount Pearl.
Joe Butler is one of many who rely on Metrobus to get around. When this store closes, the next options for him are Walmart on Kelsey Drive, Stavanger Drive, or Mount Pearl. And for him, that's a long ride away.
So you're looking at 2-hour travel to, 2-hour travel from, plus shopping.
Today, like most days, shoppers brave the COVID and the cold to get deals on the things they need. What they didn't need? Hearing that their neighborhood store would soon be shutting down.
It's not very good.
Too much clothes up around here now.
I was devastated yesterday.
How often do you come to the Walmart here on Topsail Road?
Usually around two or three times a week.
It's a tough economic time and small businesses are pushing people to support local. But for some, Walmart is still the go-to spot. It's near various neighborhoods, a stone's throw from a major bus route, a one-stop shop where shoppers can find anything from gardening supplies to groceries.
It's breaking my heart like everything else, honey.
A lot of shoppers here today didn't really want to go on camera to share their thoughts about this Walmart closing. A number of them came up to me to tell me what they personally thought. And that's that this is a very convenient location for people who live in the West End. There's a lot of people who walk to and from this location, and for a number of people, it's a lot more convenient to come here than it would be to go to Kelsey Drive, Mount Pearl, or Stavanger. So when this store here behind me does close, it'll be a big loss for a lot of people. Jeremy Eaton, CBC News, St. John's.
PC leader Ches Crosby is still trying to get the COVID-19 modeling the Liberals used to call the election released to the public. He's now written a letter to the clerk of the Executive Council requesting the information be disclosed. The clerk has the authority to release the documents if it's in the public interest. Liberal leader Andrew Furey has said he's seen data that shows there could have been a spike in COVID at the end of March, so it made sense to call the election for mid-February.
You look at the evidence available to you and you try to look for it as best you can. The numbers were low. The probabilistic modeling looked like we may have a spike more towards the end of March. And so we thought the time was now.
Furey made those comments in February at the start of the recent outbreak in the metro region, but Furey won't release the data. The government says the documents fall under cabinet confidentiality. The Liberals have since said Furey was referring to data from other jurisdictions when he made those comments. Crosby said yesterday he doesn't believe there are any documents, but if there are, he says the clerk of the Executive Council has the authority to release them to the public.
I think the public have a right to know what was the basis on which Mr. Furey called the election. He claims to have modeling and probabilistic modeling. Well, let's see it. This kind of information about pandemic modeling has always been made available to the public across this country and around the world. Why is it suddenly being held back now? The voters that remain and the public that just voted have a right to know how it was that we got pitched into this mess by the Premier.
Now, Fury released a statement today saying he's already addressed this issue. He says COVID-19 patterns in a number of jurisdictions, including our province and across Canada, were reviewed. Fury also says our province has some of the most strict public health measures, particularly on travel, which also had to be weighed. All of this informed the best timing of an election this year, as was required by the legislation. The clerk of the Executive Council says he has received Crosby's letter and will not be responding publicly. He will respond to Crosby directly.
Well, there is one new case of COVID-19 in the province today. This follows 3 straight days without any cases. Public Health says a man in the Eastern Health region between 20 and 39 years of age has tested positive. He's in self-isolation and contact tracing is underway. The positive case is connected to international travel. There are 6 new recoveries today, which leaves 45 active cases in the province. All but 1 are in the Eastern Health region. 2 people remain in hospital in intensive care. Well, Canada's National Advisory Committee has updated its guidelines on AstraZeneca. It's now recommending the vaccine for all adults, including those over 65. In this province, the AstraZeneca vaccine has been going to frontline essential workers. More than a dozen countries in Europe suspended use of that vaccine because of health concerns, but the EU regulator says there's no evidence the vaccine causes blood clots.
While the investigation is ongoing, we are still firmly convinced that the benefits of the AstraZeneca vaccine in preventing COVID-19 with its associated risk of hospitalization and death outweigh the risk of these side effects.
Still, the agency is looking into these reports and plans to make its findings public on Thursday. Canadian health officials say the rate of adverse events is small, about the same as what's seen in the general population.
Temperatures again today sitting a little bit below where we should be sitting this time of year, sitting anywhere from about -2 to -6 for Port aux Basques, and then those temperatures into the minus teens up through portions of Labrador. Now, we don't have a whole lot happening today. Ridge of high pressure dominating mainly areas of Labrador, and then we've got a trough that's moving through the island, and that is sparking some flurry activity. The other thing is the winds have really ramped up earlier today. We saw gusts, or seeing gusts rather, around 60 to 80 kilometers per hour. That's generally going to continue as we head through the overnight tonight. So with all of that snow that has fallen, it's going to pick it up and we could see some blowing and drifting snow certainly being reported already across the Avalon. As we head into the early morning hours, things will start to, or rather into the afternoon, things will start to calm down a little bit with winds gusting anywhere from 30 to 50 kilometers per hour. That's going to set the stage for a quiet couple of days. Then things will get a little bit messy as we head towards the weekend, but I'll have all those details coming up.
Well, we've been reporting on the province's new school plan. High school students will move to online learning until at least next month. One teen in Corner Brook isn't happy with the move. Here now as Colleen Connors explains.
Students at this school got a taste of what it was like to be back in the classroom just last week when they were experiencing a combination of virtual and in-class learning. But now, starting this week at Corner Brook Regional High, students are at home learning virtually again.
Yeah, this is where I do my schoolwork, chats with friends, various school activities.
Grade 12 student Emma Waterman is doing 5 Google Meet classes a day, all from her bedroom. When alert levels were lifted, Corner Brook students were allowed back to class half-time for about a week.
I missed it. The social, being social for me is one of my necessities, and I'm sure it's necessities for a lot of other students. So having that interaction really just boosted everybody's morale, and I think a lot of people are disappointed that we're back online full-time.
The province's school district made a call late last week to keep all high school students at home because there is no way to keep those students 2 meters apart in school. Plus, high school students move from class to class with no cohorts. The district says virtual learning is just safer right now.
Personally, I love being in the classroom. I think that it helps me learn. I can ask my peers for questions. I can talk to my teachers. Just having that interactive element of being social and being able to make eye contact, I think that's a necessity.
However, she does understand why health officials moved back to online, even though there was little to no cases in the Western Health region. Waterman's solution? Listen to the experts.
Well, when Janice Fitzgerald and Dr. Haggie, once they come to a firm solution and we lower alert levels and they do deem it safe for us to be in larger groups of people, like 20, 30, I think then that's the opportunity to push students slowly back into school, but rushing it is not the right option.
The virtual learning plan will remain in effect until at least April 1st, and the school district will reevaluate after the Easter break.
Waterman hopes that by at least June, she can be back in the classroom with her classmates and end her high school career safely. Colleen Connors, CBC News, Corner Brook.
Well, a group dedicated to protecting wild salmon is calling on DFO to increase regulation of the aquaculture industry to save the declining salmon population on the south coast of Newfoundland. The Atlantic Salmon Federation says salmon farming, not recreational fishing, poses a real threat to wild salmon. Here in Mark Quinn reports.
The ASF has no doubt that one of the big threats to wild salmon like these is fish farming.
It's certainly not the only thing that impacts wild salmon on the south coast or right across Newfoundland, but it is the one thing that distinguishes that south coast population from the rest of the province, and that, we believe, is the reason why those populations are doing so poorly down there.
Fisheries and Oceans released its annual Atlantic salmon stock assessment last week. It included more bad news for wild salmon on the south coast. Severe declines in abundance and salmon in two rivers are near extinction. Sutton says more local research on threats like sea lice is needed to understand what's happening.
What we do know from DFO's own research is that there's been extensive interbreeding between wild salmon and escaped farm salmon on the south coast, and we think that's having a major impact.
CBC News asked the Newfoundland Aquaculture Industry Association to comment, but our calls have not been returned. The ASF, whose members are primarily salmon anglers, is calling on the Fisheries Department not to ban recreational salmon fishing on the south coast.
One of the things that salmon have going for them that many other species don't is in Newfoundland, they have tens of thousands of people who care about them, and those people tend to be anglers. And so when the species are in trouble, the last thing you want to do is disconnect those people who care and who are willing to fight for them from them.
Sutton says DFO has a conflict of interest in this province, where it's expected to promote aquaculture and protect wild salmon.
It doesn't make any sense, and that is probably the heart of the matter as to why DFO is unwilling to step in and actually do their job.
DFO is scheduled to meet with stakeholders and Indigenous groups in Newfoundland and Labrador tomorrow and Thursday. The department says it will use what it hears about the salmon stock assessment to develop conservation measures. Mark Quinn, CBC News, St. John's.
Job losses in the thousands, billions in work commitments, either postponed or cancelled, but through it all, there are now some signs of recovery.
Yes, after a year of living through a pandemic, that's been the reality for Newfoundland and Labrador's troubled oil industry. Here Now's Terry Roberts takes a look back and ahead in this feature report.
These photos, a rare glimpse into the tightly guarded Bull Arm site, tell the story. One small section of shoreline in Trinity Bay, a temporary boneyard for two idled drill rigs, two supply ships, and the iconic Terra Nova FPSO, all built at great expense, now rusting in silence, their futures uncertain, just like the thousands of people whose lives have been upended by a year of chaos and cuts.
Everyone is in a hard situation, and nobody knows what they're going to do at the end of that unemployment check.
Amanda Young is one of the casualties.
We all thought that we were going to retire offshore until last year.
11 years as a cook on the Terra Nova, her dream job.
I mean, times were really good. I mean, bills were getting paid. We were saving up for the kids' college funds. Now everything's put on hold. We're stuck.
Her partner, one of just a handful of people still working on the Terra Nova, but no idea how long that will last.
We all know that unemployment check don't pay for the mortgage.
Let's rewind for a moment to early 2020. I know it seems like a lifetime ago, but it was hard at the time. not to get caught up in all the optimism surrounding the oil and gas industry.
Hundreds of workers were building the West White Rose expansion project. Construction sites in Argentia and Marystown were booming. There was talk of a bow wave of exploration, billions committed by companies in search of the next major discovery. Equinor was getting closer to sanctioning another big job creator, the Bay du Nord oil project in the Flemish Pass, poised to become the 5th producing oil field in the offshore. The Terra Nova was preparing to sail for Spain, an expensive refit that would allow the vessel to produce oil for another decade. And the Come-by-Chance oil refinery was expanding. But the momentum and optimism came to a crashing halt. A microscopic virus, COVID-19. And then an oil price war between Russia and Saudi Arabia turned the world and this province's transformational oil industry upside down.
It's been incredibly difficult for NOYA members in the service and supply sector of the offshore industry and for the families who depend on it.
Like dominoes, projects began dropping. It was a series of sensational setbacks that slowly chipped away at an industry that has formed the economic backbone of this province for a quarter century.
The White Rose project was halted. Drilling campaigns put on hold. Equinor announced a decision on Bay du Nord was being deferred. The refinery stopped producing fuels. Hibernia suspended drilling as a cost-cutting measure, and other work was put on hold. The Terra Nova left the offshore, all but a few of her crew sent home. No guarantee it will ever produce another barrel of oil. The Oil and Gas Industries Association estimates that 5,000 people lost their jobs. Many of them, highly specialized, have taken their skills elsewhere in the world.
And we suddenly quickly moved from having a few challenges in the industry to being in full crisis mode.
The number of chopper flights to the offshore were slashed. Pilots and maintenance crew grounded.
Now here's some numbers to drive home the point. In January of 2020, there were 46 vessel departures from this offshore marine base here in St. John's, a vital link to the offshore. In January of this year, just 21.
A year ago, there were 17 of these ships sailing to and from the offshore. Now there's only 6.
That was devastating. So to bring them all together and then tell them that they don't have a job anymore.
With fewer people working in the offshore and the pandemic making it difficult to carry out offshore safety survival training, companies like this were also hit hard.
We went from about probably 85% of our revenue coming directly from oil and gas down to somewhere in the neighborhood of 45 to 50% of our revenue. And that was a big hit for us.
It's forced companies like this to diversify, chasing down business in the marine industry, military, civilian aviation.
You know, I jokingly say to friends and family, like, we're a survival company. We're in a global pandemic. Our intention is to survive.
But there are signs of a recovery. The all-important Brent crude benchmark is now nearing $70 per barrel as the global economy emerges from its pandemic slump. That price, by the way, is higher than it was pre-pandemic.
That's stoking optimism that Equinor is once again close to an investment decision on its Bay du Nord project, raising hopes that idle drill rigs like this may soon be back in the offshore, looking for the next major discovery. That a deal will be reached to refit the Terra Nova, and that this oil platform will be completed.
I do see the oil and gas industry coming back. We talk to a lot of the operators fairly routinely. They're eager to see it come back.
The thing that keeps me going the most is the desire for NOYA members to do everything that they possibly can to survive so that we can ensure that we reach our potential.
But for some, the recovery will be too little, too late. Amanda Young is not waiting around. She has her sights set on becoming a nurse. But still, she loses sleep for what the future might hold for those waiting for a recovery.
We have thousands of people here left without a job, thousands of families on this island, and there's nowhere to turn to. And after an unemployment check, where do you turn?
In the meantime, she's enjoying quality time with her stepdaughters and preparing for a new future, perhaps one with less unpredictability. Terry Roberts, CBC News, St. John's.
If someone is standing in front of you with an organ,
do we really want to say we're not even going to bother testing you to see if you're compatible?
Nearly 200 people in Atlantic Canada are waiting for a kidney transplant, but one woman was turned away from donating to her friend.
You may be surprised to hear why. That story is ahead just after Ashley's weather.
This weather update is brought to you by the Healthcare Foundation Home Lottery. Order tickets now at hcfhomelottery.ca.
Ashley is here now with a look at the weather forecast, and it was a chilly one out there today. Ashley, lots of flurries on the go too.
Yeah, and lots of windy conditions as well, which made these cool temperatures feel even worse earlier this afternoon. Let's take a look at the daytime highs today, anywhere from -2 to about -6 across the island. A little cooler as you head towards Labrador, -11 in Cartwright, -15 Hopedale, and Lab City USAT at -15 through most of the afternoon today. Taking a look at the current temperatures, lost a few degrees here and there, but with these strong winds in the east, you can see gusts out of the north anywhere from 39, or rather this is sustained winds, 39 kilometers per hour for St. John's, Bonavista 70, And Twillingate right now, you're seeing sustained winds at 50 kilometers per hour. Now that is leading to wind chills feeling closer to the minus teens. That's generally the story as we head through the overnight tonight, with the potential for some flurries sticking around as well, and that's thanks to a trough. If we zoom in a little bit, you can see some of those flurries that moved through earlier today were heavy at times. Some flurries happening along central or through central as well as the west coast, not really being picked up by radar very well, but that is the story as we head through the overnight tonight, with that risk of flurries continuing generally through midnight, and they continue along the west coast. We should see some clearing in some areas, certainly up through Labrador, and a few flurries possible for Lab City as we head into the early morning hours. Now, that cool, or rather those clear skies, are going to lead to some pretty cool conditions up through Labrador. Minus 26 the overnight low again in Happy Valley, Goose Bay. Not too much wind to speak of, but like I mentioned earlier, those winds are certainly going to continue for eastern areas. Northwesterlies anywhere from 50 to 70 kilometers per hour. So these temperatures into the minus 7 to minus 9 degree range are going to feel much colder overnight tonight. Grand Falls, Windsor, you'll see a low near minus 15, may dip a little bit more in some of those lower lying areas. And same thing for northern portions of the island. Now, as we head through tomorrow, pretty nice actually to start. The lingering flurries will continue along the west coast. And then as we head into the afternoon, more cloudy periods expected to develop, and we'll see the potential for some flurries as well. That's pretty much the story across Labrador as well. As we head into the afternoon, you'll see that potential for flurries move towards coastal areas, and more flurries will move in late day, or at least towards the early morning hours for the western areas of Labrador. As far as snowfall totals go, you can see the tip of the northern Avalon as well as the Bonavista Peninsula. This is including pretty much what fell today. Could see another 2 to 5 centimeters, bringing accumulations in some areas close to 5 or 10. And then not a whole lot happening along the west coast. As we head through the day on Wednesday, though, we could see upwards of about 5 centimeters, some pockets of 5 to 10 is possible for the west coast as we head into Thursday morning. As far as temperatures go tomorrow, again, sitting about minus 1 to minus 5 across the board, a little cooler for the northern peninsula. Winds will ease a little bit. Westerlies anywhere from 20 to 40 kilometers per hour. Another relatively calm day for Labrador, again with the potential for some flurries, but temperatures will be sitting around minus 6 to minus 9, a little cooler for Nain at minus 12. So we are into a little bit of a lull as far as weather goes. These are the coolest temperatures it looks like. It's going to start to warm up as we head into Thursday and Friday with some plenty of rain on the way, but I'll break that down for you coming up.
Thanks, Ashley. Well, it's an incredible gift, one that can save the life of a loved one. But not everyone can be a live kidney donor. One woman was shocked to learn she was eliminated from the process. She can't donate her kidney to a friend because she doesn't have a family doctor. It's a rule that applies to potential donors in the Atlantic region, including here in this province. Carolyn Ray has that story.
For 2 years, Brenda McKenzie has been waiting.
I'm going to stay positive that something is going to happen for me, that I will get a kidney.
McKenzie has polycystic kidney disease. 3 nights a week, she spends hours on dialysis, and it will be that way until she gets a transplant. When her friends found out, 4 people stepped up offering to donate a kidney.
It's hard to honestly capture that in words, what you say to somebody who's actually willing to put themselves on the line.
Among them, Bonnie St. Croix, who is willing to do anything to help her friend.
Why wouldn't I? Because I guess this means a lot to Brenda, obviously. And I had a relative who was also on dialysis, and I just know the impact of that.
One by one, Mackenzie's potential matches were eliminated from the process. Then it was St. Croix's turn, but she didn't even make it past the first questionnaire because her doctor just retired.
And they were like, oh, we can't proceed then. And I was completely shocked in the moment.
This is a rule that affects patients from across the Atlantic region who come to Halifax for transplants. On average, they can wait for 2.5 to 3 years for this life-changing surgery.
Nova Scotia Health said no one was available for an interview, so instead it sent me a statement.
It says that primary care providers are important for the safety of donors from the present and into the future. That's because often during these tests, other issues come up. Right now, there are 180 people on the wait list for a kidney in the region. Another 127 are undergoing tests to be added to that list. This while doctor shortages continue to be a problem. Mackenzie and St. Croix argue it's time to rethink the rules and come up with new solutions.
If someone is standing in front of you with an organ, do we really want to say, we're not even going to bother testing you to see if you're compatible?
But for now, they both wait, wondering what could be and hoping a new donor can help Mackenzie soon. Carolyn Ray, CBC News, Halifax.
Rotational workers have faced some of the largest hardships from the COVID protection measures over the last year. Every time workers have returned home, they've had to isolate. But now some workers have decided it's time to move out of the province. Steve Reed is one of those workers. He works on the Site C project in BC, but we've reached him in Alberta. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So why did you make the decision to move out of the province?
Obviously, it's an incredibly tough decision to make. I made a life and had a home in Newfoundland. Newfoundland's my home province, and like every other Newfoundlander, it's our home. We want to be there. This pandemic, the fact that we've had to isolate, be away from our families, it's taken an incredible toll on everybody's mental stability. It's unfortunate. And I made a Facebook post a few days ago, about a week ago, I guess now, and basically stated that I officially sold my home and I'm moving away. And it was baffling to see the amount of people that are in the same predicament, in the same boat as me.
You mentioned the hardships that isolation has created. Can you give me an idea for yourself? What's it been like over the last year, going back and forth?
We come to work. Some of us work 14 days, some of us work 28 days, some of us work 20 days. I recently worked 40 days straight. I mean, that's 40 days that we spend at work, away from our family, away from pretty much life. We just spend it working, eating, going to sleep, getting up every day, doing the exact same thing. And all we look forward to at the end of our 40 days, 20 days, whatever it is going home, relaxing, being with our families, doing what we love to do. For a lot of people, it's been a year of no life. And the only way to get rid of that, or the only way to defeat that, is to sell your home and move to somewhere that there is a life.
They just announced some more relaxed measures, 3 tests, and kind of relaxing those measures gradually over the course of those 3 tests. Doesn't that kind of address some of the concerns about the isolation while still addressing the concern that workers moving back and forth could bring the virus into the province?
Absolutely, and we're really proud. We're really happy for these tests. But it's been a long road. I mean, we've been over a year now with this pandemic. I mean, 8 months ago, I started a petition personally, has over 7,000 signatures, for asking for this exact point of entry testing. This is what we've asked for. We didn't ask for freedom. We didn't ask for to take the test and be allowed to associate with the public. We just wanted a point of entry test so that we felt safe, so that we could actually live our lives. We were denied. I mean, it's 8 months. A lot of things happen in 8 months. And I'm really happy, and it's great for everybody that we are now finally getting our point of entry tests. We're also getting our vaccines. So, I mean, it's streamlining everything. It seems like it's great, but essentially we're going to be out of the works anyway. But it's too late. For a lot of us, it's too late. It's been, for me, we're 4 months too late.
The pandemic is something that's going to be temporary. We're hoping that later on this year, through vaccines, that things are going to go much more back to normal. Doesn't this, does it really make sense, I guess, to do a permanent thing like a move when the light is at the end of the tunnel, as we keep hearing from health officials?
The light is at the end of the tunnel. The light was also at the end of the tunnel before we had the second outbreak, and then we all got told that we had to do 14 days isolation by ourselves.
One of the issues with moving, of course, is Newfoundland and Labrador right now has very few cases of COVID, especially on the west coast, where you're moving away from. You're going to move to Alberta, where they're seeing hundreds of cases a day. Did that factor into your decision at all?
The numbers in Newfoundland are terrific, absolutely amazing. When you step outside of Newfoundland, it's the dynamic of this virus, in my opinion, completely changes. You see in Alberta and BC, for instance, where I'm very much used to. I've been out here for months and months. We live with the virus. Yes, we see hundreds per day, but we can still, everybody still does their part. We still follow all the social distancing. The only cases that you see, yes, close contacts, but the spread is not to a proportion of outbreak status, in my opinion. We still all go to work. All businesses are, for the most part, open, and they're thriving and they're staying alive. So yes, the stats are a little higher. There's more cases out here, but the quality of life is significantly better.
Well, thank you very much for speaking with me, and good luck with your move.
Thank you.
So how concerned is the province about losing these workers, their families, and their tax dollars? I asked Premier Andrew Furey about it at the last briefing.
I think today's change shows a willingness to support the families of the rotational workers so that they can develop less stressful, albeit it's still going to be stressful. I can appreciate that. time of isolation when they return to the province. It's a tough situation for them and their families, and I can appreciate that, but we hope that they still continue to call Newfoundland and Labrador home.
Moderna says it has started studying the safety and effectiveness of its COVID-19 vaccine on children. The company plans to enroll just over 6,700 children in the U.S. and here in Canada. The mid to late stage study involves children between 6 months to those less than 12 years old. Moderna is currently approved here for adults 18 and older. Canada is on track to receive 2 million doses from the drug maker by the end of the month.
I think that COVID will be with us forever. I don't think we're going to eradicate it. It's a sneaky little virus.
Well, a year into the pandemic, how will it end? The second part of Peter's one-on-one interview with the Chief Medical Officer of Health is up next.
As we mark the one-year anniversary of COVID in our province, tonight we're looking ahead in the second part of my interview with the Chief Medical Officer of Health. Just how will this pandemic end?
That's painless.
December was the beginning of the end for COVID in this province, a safe and effective vaccine less than a year from the discovery of the virus until vaccinations started. Almost 5% of the population has now had at least one dose in Newfoundland and Labrador. But there's still a lot we don't know about how this pandemic will end. How quickly will vaccines reduce our cases, and how long will that protection last?
This is all positive momentum. I feel optimistic about the weeks ahead, and I hope you do too.
It has been 1 year since the first case of COVID in the province, so I'm sitting down here with Dr. Janice Fitzgerald, and I want to ask you about how we're going to navigate the next few months. You've said we need to keep our contacts low. Does that mean the freedoms that we enjoyed even just back in January are something we're not going to have back until vaccinations happen?
So I hope that in some form we'll be able to still do a lot of those things that many of those things, if not all of them, that we were able to do. We just need to think about doing them a little bit differently and maybe with fewer contacts. So I do hope that we'll be able to get there. We're just trying to see where we go with this, where we want to make sure that, we're not seeing a resurgence of cases or anything as we increase people moving about and doing more things. So we're being a bit cautious, but I think our hope is that we will get back to somewhere very close to where we were. And of course, with vaccines on the horizon, that may change things as well.
Are we going to have to wait for everyone to get vaccinated? Or once we have the most vulnerable, those who are most likely to get serious disease from this, the ones that are most likely to die, once they're vaccinated, can we start to open things up more?
The hope would be, obviously, as with many vaccines, that once we start having more of those people vaccinated who are at risk for more severe disease, that we will be able to be a little more lenient with our public health measures. But I think we have to accept that there's going to be some level of distancing, the hand washing, all of that is still going to be a part of our lives, and perhaps masking for a while yet.
When you talk about a while yet, how long are you thinking?
Certainly into the summer, if not a little bit longer.
I think a lot of people are expecting that once we get to the end of June or July and every adult who wants a vaccine has one, that it's going to be kind of like flipping a switch. Yay, pandemic's over. I've already seen people planning, a birthday party for July with all of their friends. Do you think that's realistic?
I think we don't really know at this point. So once again, we got to wait for that information about the effects of these vaccines on transmission of the virus. Once we have more information about that, it'll be I think we'll be able to make some better recommendations about what you can do and what you can't do. The other thing we have to remember at this point is that we still don't have children under the age of 16 vaccinated. We don't have a vaccine that's been approved for them yet. I hope that we'll get that sometime soon. So that's another group that's a significant proportion of our population that we need to think about vaccinating before we can think about herd immunity.
What if this virus doesn't go away, though? We're already seeing, for example, people in long-term care homes in Quebec and BC who are fully vaccinated. They're still getting sick. Fortunately, they're not having to go to the hospital. It's more mild disease. But is it possible that we're going to have some measures forever, that we will never go back to the way things were?
I think that COVID will be with us forever. I don't think we're going to eradicate it. It's a sneaky little virus, and it's been able to mutate, and it's, that's what Mother Nature does. We vaccinate a lot of people against measles, but we still have measles circulating from not circulating in our country, but in the world, right? So that's the other thing we have to think about, is that there are a lot of other countries in the world that have yet to start vaccinating anybody, and that this virus can circulate in those countries. So, that's why it's so important to make sure that on a global scale, we're all getting vaccinated. So we are going to see this virus with us for certainly for the foreseeable future. And it may be that, there may have to be some measures that are put in place at times of, like, we may find out it's more seasonal and, those sorts of things like other coronaviruses are. And so there may be some precautions that we have to put in place on a seasonal basis, for example. So I guess time will tell us that.
What will you need to see in order for the travel restrictions to be lifted? Because I think that for a lot of people, the mask wearing and the hand washing, if we have to do that, I think people are a lot more willing to accept it, but it's things like the travel restrictions that have been some of the hardest for a lot of people.
We need to see a fairly good coverage here in our province, but we also need to see a fairly good coverage elsewhere in the country to look at lifting those restrictions. When it comes to traveling elsewhere in the world, once again, we have to think about those countries that, there are lots of places that have yet to start.
We've been talking a lot about, I think, some of the measures and the things that we all want to put behind us after this pandemic. What are some of the things that you'd like to see stick around?
I think that COVID has certainly opened up some, it's laid bare really some of the gaps that we've seen within our societies when we think about elder care, when we think about people who are marginalized. There's been a lot that COVID has taught us about how we provide care and how we look after those people in our population. And I hope that we can take a lot of those lessons that we have learned from all of this and continue to apply it going forward. COVID across the world has been a great tragedy. There's no doubt about that, but we would add to that tragedy if we really didn't take the lessons that we've learned from it and bring them forward and change the way that we do things so that the next time we see a pandemic, we're not in the same position.
I want to ask you about that, though, because in this province, we have not seen the cases in long-term care homes. We have not seen the way it's just sort of torn like wildfire through a lot of long-term care homes in other provinces. Is that something that is fundamental about how we're doing things differently, or has that just been luck?
I think we have done things a little bit differently. I think part of it is that, we didn't have a lot of cases to start with. We learned a lot of lessons very early on from what others had experienced. And so we were able to put some measures in place that we hoped and seemed to have prevented those kinds of outbreaks from happening. But, as we saw with this B117 outbreak, it can happen in the blink of an eye and you don't even really realize that you've got anything circulating, and there it is. So, we're not out of the woods yet. We do have all of our long-term care populations vaccinated, which is wonderful, with at least one dose. So that's wonderful. But, we're still not out of the woods in that regard yet. So we do need to make sure we're holding on to those measures for now.
Dr. Fitzgerald, thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
The song kind of talks about like the different phases of motherhood and how mothers are kind of navigating the pandemic.
I hope that people can find a few themes to like relate to within the term like isolation.
And now we actually have like a rainbow baby on the way, and then the words just started falling into place for me.
Ashley is back with a look at the long-range forecast. And Ashley, how long will these cold temperatures be sticking around?
Well, the good news is it looks like after tomorrow, we're going to start to see things warm up. Let's take a look at the future tracker to show what's going to happen. We'll start to see that next area of low pressure move in as we head into the afternoon on Thursday. The first half actually looks nice, except through Labrador. You're going to see some of that flurry activity or light snow move in into the afternoon and then get heavier as you head into the evening hours. You can see some snow at this point. Looks like it'll move in Thursday afternoon for most of the island and then change over to rain mainly for eastern areas. Looks like the rain snow line might be through central at this point. Still a few things to iron out, but as we head into Friday, lots of moisture associated with this one. We could see some heavy rain, particularly for eastern areas of the island, the Burin Peninsula, as well as the Avalon. So certainly something to keep an eye on. Anything into Friday looks like it'll change back over to snow west of that line. So taking a look at the temperatures, 2 to 4 degrees above zero into Thursday as we get into more of that southerly flow. A little bit of sunshine to start on Thursday, but then all of that mess will move in late day. For Labrador, again, back into those minus single digits, minus double digits for Nain at minus 10. And then as we head into Friday, relatively calm temperatures as another ridge of high pressure will dominate for the west, Lab City, as well as Nain. And then again, 5, 6, 7 degrees even possible for Friday with that heavy rain expected. Certainly something that I will be watching over the next couple of days. By the time you get to central, changing back over to snow into the afternoon, because these temperatures are going to be your morning highs and then they're going to drop into the afternoon. You can see Corner Brook on the cold side of that, hovering around the 0 degree mark by the time we get to Friday. So that'll happen Saturday for eastern areas. So your morning high will be about 6 degrees, and then it'll drop through the day. So that should change over to flurries. We may even see some clearing skies, and then back down to the minus single digits as we head into Sunday with the potential for some flurries. For central Newfoundland, Saturday and Sunday actually look pretty quiet as a ridge of high pressure moves in, but temperatures again back below zero for Saturday, Sunday flirting with that around 1 degree, it looks like at this point. For western Newfoundland, keeping you below zero through Saturday and Sunday with some flurries continuing right through the weekend. And then for Labrador, you can see your normal temperatures should be sitting around minus 3. We'll hit that Thursday, and then by Friday and Saturday, going to drop right back down. By Sunday, we'll get back to where we should be sitting this time of year with some sunshine. And then normals for Lab West around minus 6. Friday will certainly dip well below that, and then we're back up above seasonal as we head into Sunday with a temperature near minus 1 and the potential for some flurries. I wanted to share this photo of sunset at Middle Cove Beach. Paula shared this photo with us. Thank you so much for sharing that. Love the ice there. If you have any weather photos to share with us, send them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Thanks, Ashley. And that's a stunning photo.
Yeah, it looked really nice.
Yeah, so tomorrow is Wednesday, so that means we're probably going to have another briefing tomorrow, right?
Yes, that's what we're expecting, and especially because we didn't have one on Monday. And one of the big questions for them tomorrow is going to be about the AstraZeneca vaccine. We saw the federal announcement today that they are now recommending it for people over the age of 65. The 7,000 doses we've already received of this vaccine are destined for frontline workers. These are a lot of people like, for example, policemen or police officers, firefighters are going to get those doses. But as more vaccine comes in, will they start using it for older people, or will they leave the Moderna and the Pfizer vaccine for them? A lot of vaccine questions, so hopefully we'll get some more clarity on that from Dr. Fitzgerald.
All right, great. Thanks, Peter. And thank you, everyone at home, for watching tonight.
Have a great night.